This video was sponsored by iMobi. They offer helpful software solutions like Anytrans, a device backup software that allows you to easily back up the contents of your iPhone, iPad, and Android device, including their contacts, messages, photos, videos, and even imported files that aren't included in a standard iTunes backup. You can also choose to only back up files you've selected individually, which saves you time and storage space. Try Anytrans today for free by clicking the link in the description. Hey guys, it's Greg with Apple Explained, and welcome to Tech Flashback, where we travel back in time and review what used to be the latest and greatest tech products. Now let's turn back the clock to 2007 and take a look at the revolutionary Apple iPhone. It retails for $499 or $599 in 4 or 8 GB models. And it includes a 2-year contract with AT&T, who is the only cellular provider available for iPhone. You can buy the iPhone from an Apple store or AT&T store, and I decided to get mine from the Apple store, of course. The black sleek box features an embossed photo of the iPhone with a concave home button on the front, metallic Apple logos on the top and bottom, and the word iPhone with its storage capacity on either side, also in a metallic finish. The back side describes what's included in the box, requirements for activation and iTunes syncing, and device identification numbers. After we lift the lid, we're greeted by the iPhone itself, cradled in a clear piece of plastic formed to fit the iPhone perfectly, and the inside of the lid is lined with soft black foam for extra protection during transport. The iPhone has a smooth anodized aluminum finish, and the curved edges make it very comfortable to hold. But before we get into the details, let's see what's in the box. First thing we see is a black cardboard envelope holding an instruction manual called Fingertips, where it explains important functions of the iPhone and its operating system. Next is a detailed product information guide, and finally 2 white Apple stickers. Beneath that, we get a bunch of accessories, including a wall adapter with prongs that are not only foldable, but also removable, so we can attach extension cables or other international adapters. We also get a useful dock accessory that charges your iPhone while sitting upright on your desk. There's a 30-pin connector on the back and a line-out port that allows you to connect external audio sources like speakers. The dock also has speaker vents, so when the iPhone is docked, sound from the internal speaker is redirected outward to maintain clarity. Next, we get a pair of Apple earbuds similar to the iPods, but these feature an inline microphone for phone calls. And just like the iPod, we get a 30-pin USB connector for charging and syncing. As for the device itself, it's a completely new smartphone concept that no one has ever seen before. No keyboard, no stylus, just a big multi-touch screen. Now this screen is not plastic, it's made from Corning Gorilla Glass and houses a capacitive touchscreen that perceives contact with your finger by a disruption in electrical currents rather than a resistive touchscreen which perceives contact by pressure applied to a certain area. This capacitive screen responds immediately to the slightest tap and makes interacting with the iPhone very natural and even enjoyable. The first thing you'll see after waking the iPhone is this lock screen. You have to deliberately slide your finger across the screen to unlock. This feature was added to prevent pocket dialing and seems to work well since I didn't have a problem with that at all. The iPhone doesn't have nearly as many buttons as other smartphones, but there is a single home button below the display that takes you to the home screen from anywhere you're at. It's easy to forget the home button is even there when you're so focused on exploring the touchscreen, but going back and forth between screen tapping and button pressing becomes second nature in no time. Housed above the display is an earpiece which doesn't get as loud as I'd like, especially in noisy outdoor environments. There's also a proximity sensor which turns off the display when it's held to your ear and turns it back on when you pull the phone away. This prevents accidental inputs from being registered during phone calls. There's also an accelerometer that knows which way you're holding the phone and adjusts the screen content accordingly. This is a really cool feature that I'll demonstrate later. Along the top, we have a power button. When you hold down the power button, you can slide to turn the phone off completely, which is similar to shutting down a computer. But while using iPhone throughout the day, it would be quite inconvenient to start it up and shut it down again just to check the time. That's why you can quickly press the power button to put the phone into sleep mode. This conserves battery life while enabling an instant on display. Next, there's a mini SIM card tray that you can eject with a paper clip. As you can see, there's already a SIM card installed since this phone is locked to AT&T, so I won't have to worry about replacing it anytime soon. There's also a recessed headphone jack, which could be frustrating since only the included Apple headphones are directly compatible, although you can use an adapter to connect other headphones. On the left side, we get a mute switch that'll silence incoming calls and text, but it still delivers vibrations to alert you. There's also a volume rocker with a crevice in the center so you can differentiate between volume up and down. On the bottom, you'll find openings for the iPhone's speaker, 30-pin connector, and microphone. And since the iPhone shares the same 30-pin connector as the iPod, you should be able to use most iPod accessories with the iPhone as well. The back is cased in beautiful anodized aluminum with a plastic black section at the bottom that allows the iPhone's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cellular radio signals to pass through. We also get a 2-megapixel camera, and although it doesn't have flash or video recording, it does take some nice photos with great color reproduction and decent resolution, but definitely suffers in low light conditions. There's also an Apple logo with a mirrored finish instead of the backlit logo that we're used to seeing on Apple's notebooks. Now let's take a look at this beautiful screen. Like I said before, this is a capacitive touchscreen that requires contact with your skin to work. It has a resolution of 320 by 480, and at 163 pixels per inch, it's the sharpest display Apple has ever made. It's bright and colorful and looks great even in outdoor settings. There's also an oleophobic coating on the glass that adds a certain amount of smudge resistance. This allows fingerprints to be wiped away easily rather than smeared across the screen. Unfortunately, this coating will wear down over time. Apple designed the iPhone's interface to accommodate touch, so a stylus isn't necessary, although typing on the software keyboard does take getting used to. One neat feature of the keyboard is predictive text, where it tries to guess what word you're typing before you finish typing it. This is similar to what we've seen on T9 keyboards, and it seems to work just as well. Mobile browsing is very enjoyable on the widescreen display, especially with pinch to zoom and automatic page reorientation thanks to the iPhone's accelerometer. It's also very convenient to have a quality web browser with you on the go, supported by AT&T's Edge network. Apple chose the Edge network over 3G since it's easier on battery life, but loading websites can be painfully slow at times. Now this device is completely sealed off and not designed to be taken apart, so you can't swap out the battery yourself. In fact, the iPhone's 3.7 volt lithium-ion battery is soldered directly to the logic board, so it definitely isn't user replaceable. But you can have the battery replaced at an Apple store for $85.95. As for battery life, Apple says you can expect up to 8 hours of talk time, 7 hours of video playback, 6 hours of web browsing, 24 hours of music playback, and 250 hours of standby time. The iPhone also houses a custom Samsung ARM11 processor running at 412 MHz, which received a Geekbench score of 135. There's also 128 megabytes of onboard RAM and includes wireless standards for Bluetooth 2.0 and 802.11bg for Wi-Fi. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that review of the original iPhone. Apple ended up selling 6.1 million units and replaced the original iPhone with the iPhone 3G on July 15, 2008. Obviously, a lot has changed since then, including the competition. Before the iPhone's release in 2007, smartphones looked a lot like this. RIM dominated the market with the BlackBerry, and after the iPhone's release in 2007, competitors were sent back to the drawing board as they scrambled to develop smartphones that could compete in the same class as the iPhone. Eventually, they did catch up, and the smartphone industry was flooded with touchscreen devices. Some were decent, while others were just garbage. But the effect iPhone had was immeasurable. It began the touchscreen era in tech, an era we're still in the middle of today, with touchscreens showing up in tablets, laptops, cars, airplanes, watches, video game systems, and even restaurants. It was probably the most influential piece of technology I'll see in my lifetime. Today, the iPhone is one of Apple's most successful products, but what if I told you the iPhone wasn't the first mobile phone Apple developed? Back in 2005, Apple partnered with Motorola to create the Motorola Rocker. Apple provided the iTunes software that ran on the phone, but the product was a failure, experiencing poor sales and complaints about device performance. Perhaps the Rocker helped convince Steve Jobs that the mobile phone market was ripe for disruption. At that time, Steve's touchscreen tablet project was quickly shelved and replaced by something called Project Purple 2. The code name for an effort to implement touchscreen technology onto a mobile phone. Now there are some things that might surprise you about the original iPhone. For example, you couldn't set a custom home screen wallpaper, only the lock screen wallpaper was customizable. There was no front-facing camera, and the rear-facing camera did not have autofocusing. The texting app couldn't send photos or videos, and in order to update the iPhone software or install files, you had to do it through iTunes on your computer. Also, most original iPhones that you find today are in pretty rough condition. That's because the smartphone accessory business didn't explode until many months after the iPhone was released, so many people were using these things without any protection, including the one I have here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this close look at the original iPhone, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.